And God says that the government structure will become very weak because more and more people are not able to eke a living out of the economy. The U.S. economy, despite all the lies to the contrary, is not a healthy one. It is multiple hundreds of trillions of dollars in debt. American debt is inconceivable to the normal mind. And it obviously wasn't run up by the people. American debt is run up, for instance, by this ongoing scam that the government runs. Oh, there's trauma, and we're going to shut down until we can sign this bill. It's a fiscal bill. If we don't sign it by the next weekend, the government will shut down. In what world, foreign people listening here, in what world have you ever heard a government saying that's going to shut down like a car engine that hasn't been fixed in a long time, like a gas tank that's empty? Have you ever heard of a thing called a government shutdown? How is it that America is a country whose government shuts down unless you feed it money? Unless they come up with a bill that says, and this amount of spending has to be released, and then all of a sudden they don't shut down. They constantly threaten to shut down, and then they give themselves millions of dollars, and then they're not going to shut down. Since we're such an advanced first world country, how do you think India is running without shutdown? I'll even make it easier. How do you think Haiti manages to do it without threatening a government shutdown if they don't get money? It definitely wasn't buying diapers, and even buying Sony PlayStations that put this country into trillions, multiple hundreds of trillions of dollars of debt. It's the Princess of Babylon, how they operate, how they suck out the intestines of the nation financially and leave it hollow, and then tell the people, there's an American dream active out there. Look at Elon Musk, look at Mark Zuckerberg, they did it. You can do it too. They're shills. But for a very long time, the American people have loved shills. For a very long time, they've loved them, they've voted them, and re-voted them into office. And so we haven't come here of a starry night by mistake. The economy can't keep the weight of the amount of people that are going to fall through the cracks, the amount of people that are going to need stimulus checks, that are going to need stipends, that are going to need increased social security, that are going to be taking advantage of assistance programs like the SNAP program, that helps people with feeding, like the EBT program that we have here that helps people with being able to pay for food and other services, like your 401k that they're automatically deducting out of your salary, different forms of federal aid. FEMA's starting to have to pump more money out. CDC pumped a ton of money out, supposedly. FEMA's pumping money out because of natural disasters that are occurring, cleanup campaigns that need to happen. FEMA is always out here. Local governments are out here. State governments are out here, constantly now asking for federal aid. Why? Because the things that God said were going to happen are now happening. Fires and flooding and excessive rain and all the things that he says he will use to batter the nation until it is tenderized and destroyed, busted up, broken up, uninhabitable. Camps popping up in different parts of the country. You go and sleep in a camp because your entire house has been flooded out, your entire house is underwater, your entire house has been washed away, your entire neighborhood has been burned, such as is happening in LA still. And all these things is how America is going to end up in a slow decline, people becoming poor. And I think that a lot of people don't understand how poverty can be a judgment. It's very hard to be poor. It's very hard not to have anything. And on top of that, American poverty is so genteel. There's people who have a TV and a place to sleep in, and they're like, yeah, these are classified as the poor. We have the rising homeless epidemic, discussed at least as far back as 2021 when I said that this is an untapped army that Satan is going to fill with demons. And you know what? Here we are. The people are homeless. They're filled with demons, and now they're walking around with a knife in one hand and a machete each in the other, looking for some available flesh to stab. But I said it 3 or 4 years ago that the government, at least for New York City, is deliberately overlooking these people. And I said that God told me celestial human beings are the only ones born without their home. They're born naked. They don't have fur. They don't have dens. They don't have anything. They need a home to be safe, secure, and protected. And the Lord said that when we have no home, the elements, this is not just the natural elements, but also the spiritual elements, the forces that are out there, demons that are just rolling around looking for a home. You're homeless. You're emotionally unstable. You are suffering from a spirit of rejection, whether you want to or not. The minute that you are moved off of the place where you are comfortable, you become so insular and you feel so hurt. It is a natural thing. When you lose your home, when you lose your apartment, when you lose your house, when your house is repossessed, automatically you begin to get hit with that spirit of rejection. That thing that brings in that woe is me. Why is it happening to me? Why me? Why is this happening? And your heart goes into a downward posture. And I said that the downward posture is a dangerous place to be because Satan will come and keep you company there. It's really hard. You in this car with these kids. I mean, it's your ex's fault. She took everything. She took everything. She's the reason you can't see your kids. She's the reason you're in the car with these kids. She's in the house. She's probably in the house with her new boyfriend right now. Next thing you know, you're at that door with your gun. You're at that door with your faithful friends, Mr. Smith and Mr. Wesson. Crazed with upset. Why? Because the demon has been talking to your ear for 3 days in a car that has no heating. You're parking in the park. You have to circle the block 59,000 times until the last cop finally gets cold enough and goes home, and then you can park under the tree. And who's comfortable under that tree with Teen Wolf rolling around in the parking lot? Who's going to be comfortable there? You're angry. You're bitter. And that thing is talking. That's not a human voice. And that's not your mind. That's the passenger in the car with you. Homeless people are subject to this every single day until the external voice is granted access because the heart is broken. And when it gets in, you've seen them when they take them to the bail hearing 10 seconds before they let them out to go stab somebody else. You've seen what they look like. You can see that they're not all there. And I explained this stuff years ago before we even went into lockdown that Yah said, this is coming. And so we have that now. Poverty is a punishment. Poverty crushes pride. It's impossible to be proud when you don't have access to hot water. You don't have access to regular food. You don't have access to regular baths. Hygiene is questionable. You don't have a place to stay. You stand and you try to have some dignity and say, I just need someone to give me a shot. And then people walk by, and because this country is what it is, they won't offer you food or something. They will walk by and offer you the haughty advice of people who have food and people who have homes. You should try harder. You should have tried harder. This is a land of opportunity. Everyone can make it. Maybe you're just not trying hard enough. That's Americans for you. Hands down. A person can panhandle from the top of a train car to the bottom and not even get 10 cents. Everybody's looking at their phone because you know what? If you tried harder, you can make it. Then you give the homeless person money and the whole train car is looking at you as if you're the snitch. That's America for you, hands down. Nobody will step out of their way to go and buy a homeless person a meal. I have a place to go. It's the Samaritan all over again. And then the nation will say, I'm righteous. I'm a brother's keeper. In a parallel universe, of course. So, God is saying to America that what you see in front of you is falsehood, and it's not the right interpretation of what is really at stake. You don't see your decline coming. You don't see your defeat. You do not see the ways in which you have left yourself exposed and vulnerable, not only to an enemy's attack, but also to your own internal decline by doing things that do not profit you in the long run. You do not see that unrighteous laws and decrees have left you vulnerable to a judgment of Yah for being a nation that posits evil as good, and then defends it, and then signs it into law. So new laws are being signed as we speak. We are mere days into a new administration, and so that always brings with it a large tally of laws that are being signed. One of the laws that are being signed is the immediate removal of the large migrant population that is coming to the United States. Another law that's being signed is, I think, to put a halt on something to do with abortion. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I think there's something like that that's in the works to put a halt to something to do with female reproductive rights. And of course, that's causing quite a stir on social media because, are they going to touch our right to kill these children? Are they planning to mess with our access to the tools that kill the children? What is this? What kind of tyranny is this? What kind of backward nation do we live in where we can't just kill and remove the evidence of the fact that we can't stop having sex because we're an unbridled nation that just takes pleasure at our whim? And who cares about the consequences of the children that we become pregnant with later? It's better to kill these children based on the supposition of, what if I was raped? Even though the rape cases will never, ever, ever meet the number of cases that are just whoredoms sleeping around. What if that potential of the rape is removed? Then what? Then we'd have to be sexually responsible, an abstinent nation, because we're Christians. So who's touching that and making changes to that? America has a tendency to shut the barn door when the horse has already run away. So God is just saying that there's falsehood in front of the people, and as a result of the fact that they both see or something like that. And yes, those things do cause heartbreak. But another thing that's going to cause heartbreak is simply when you lose everything you have. I don't have to tell people how much everyone appreciates having a home. If you're a homeless person, you don't need to be told the pain of that. You don't need to be told the pain of it if you're in the foster system, if you are in the shelter system, or if you're even outside of the shelter system, you can't even find a place to live and you're an actual homeless person. You don't need to be told the pain of, for instance, if you are locked up, if you are doing time, if you're incarcerated right now, because being separated from a home, being separated from a base, being separated from loved ones, and being separated from a place that you can call your own is so incredibly difficult. And that very fact of, I have no home, or my home is under attack, or I've lost my home, it can cause so much psychological warfare to us as people because we are sedentary by nature. We want to be in one place, we get used to that place, we decorate that place, we fill it with the things we love, and then we call that arrangement my home. And so when that thing is taken away from people, they can become so unstable, they can become so heartbroken, they can become so crushed. And I have to warn you, when you are in that state, it is very easy for the enemy to attack you. Satan is easily able to attack the mind of a depressed person, able to attack the mind of a displaced person, able to attack the mind of a person who has lost everything. And then the insurance company, fulfilling the prophecies that I gave in the past some years ago, the insurance company then declines to pay out anything. Those are my first flood prophecies in 2019, where God says that as America goes through flooding, the insurance companies are really going to show people their backsides. They're going to use words like act of God, finger of God, outside of our control, and they're going to refuse to pay payouts. I saw only a very few of them will honor the premiums that have been paid to them over multiple years, perhaps over multiple decades. The majority of them are going to try and wiggle out of it, and the prophecy is being fulfilled right now, as a lot of people are finding that the premiums they paid have disappeared into thin air, and their insurance policies are basically useless. Satan is able to attack us when we are hurt. Satan is able to attack us when we suffer losses. Satan is able to attack us, please listen, when we are cold and hungry and we are taken to these FEMA emergency shelters and they're just giving us some kind of cold burrito or cold taco, and it's winter, it's December, it's cold and everything, and people are intense, you're not comfortable, you want to sleep, maybe you're a single person, and then it's full of families and the babies are crying. Why? Because the babies don't have their nightlight, they don't have their warm. So, expected to worship me, I'm going to waste everything that you have. God is not above wasting your savings. When he wipes out a house, you see those people in LA, those people collectively are in a lot of pain. You gather your stuff together, you create for yourself a nest, a home. The whole thing has the bad manners to burn down. All your documents are in there. All your everything is in there. And this is stuff that you amassed over time, unless you're a trust fund baby. You amassed it over time. Even the celebrities will feel it. Pieces that they picked up here, I picked up a piece there, flew this piece in, I picked up that up, and come out, you're never going to get it again. It was a once in a lifetime piece. These things are gone. Now to rebuild, you're automatically going to be more cramped. You're going to get less, and it's going to take time. It's going to deplete savings. It's going to empty kitties and bank accounts. It's deliberate. People will just say, oh, there was a fire here. Oh, there was a flood there. No, these are displaced people. I prophesied all the way back in the COVID years that I saw the displacement and the movement of Americans. When the Great Lake area floods, who do you think is going to stay there? Who do you think is going to live there? People are going to have to move. They're going to have to go and live in FEMA camps. A FEMA camp is not a comfortable place. They're giving you cold food, and they're just giving you cold comfort, and they're trying. And this is if they even try, if they have the capability. And the more these disasters break out, who remembers the prophecy where I said, God said the disasters will break out on America's face like a rash here, fire here, flood here, sinkholes here, earthquake here, devastating large singular judgments. America will become disfigured. People will be angry, people will be hurt, people will be in pain, people will be bellowing at the government, and the government is quite fresh. They will be bellowing back. We're doing the best that we can. What do you want us to do? Print money? This is how upset comes into a nation that is going to end up in civil war. Every prophecy, the tail of it kisses the end, the caboose of the next one. They dovetail perfectly into one another. So the strong hand of God is against the nation. He's going to tear down the heights, the walls, the buildings, the pillars, the icons into early destruction. And then he speaks of a natural disaster coming that is so devastating that the whole world's eyes will be put on America. Just a moment, please. He says because of how destructive this natural disaster will be, how powerful, and how the death toll will just keep clipping upward by the hour, and how we're going to actually see rescue workers fighting for their lives in the midst of the sea. Shattered. That thing that is going to shatter is actually pride. This nation is very prideful. The people are very prideful, and the pride is almost transparent. The average person cannot see how pride operates and that they are actually enclosed in the grip of pride. Pride enters the heart and encloses the heart within you, and then also encloses you like an ice casket. Many people are not aware of this. They can't see it. They will always get offended. What do you mean I'm proud? But pride has many different applications. Pride is not just, oh, look at me and my riches and my money. Pride can manifest in so many ways. An unteachable spirit, high-mindedness, constantly arguing and saying, but I have questions. That's pride. That's pride right there. A lot of people like to say, no, is it prideful to ask a question? Look at the way you're asking the question, and also search your heart. What's the motive behind your question? Is it truly to be instructed? Is it truly to learn so that you can change your mindset and change your way? Of course it's not. It's to be argumentative. It's to say, but. It's to point out all the points that you have always in your back pocket, walking around looking for someone that you can show your points to. That's pride. Spirit. The Holy Spirit can't get a word in edgewise. When he gets a word in edgewise, then you walk away, still prideful, saying, I just don't understand. I don't understand because it just doesn't seem fair. That's your pride right there. That's pride right there. A lot of people don't know how it looks. And so they continue to operate in it. But Yah is saying, rescue service officers of the United States, the entire United States, no matter where you are, whether it's Asheville, that has already... You see, Sodom wasn't destroyed for homosexuality. Yes, it was. A man with a man is an abomination before the eyes of God, and that is what basically pushed the Lord over the edge. But Sodom had other crimes to her account. So did Gomorrah. They were known to be extremely cunning people, extremely cruel, extremely inhospitable. If you came into the town of Sodom, they basically would steal everything from you. They would lay into you like highwaymen, like robbers. They would rob you. They would strip you of everything, your gold, your goods, your donkey, sometimes even murdering travelers that came in. There's a very unhinged group of people in that place. And then they were compounding it with their love for strange flesh and their gayness. So there you go. So God says that America is as unwelcoming as that. Wicked as Gomorrah, people who have failed to offer clemency. You know what clemency is? Clemency is a very interesting word. Clemency falls under the heading of mercy. To show clemency is to show mercy. But the difference with clemency is the kind of mercy you show to people who absolutely deserve the judgment. That's where it differs just slightly from mercy, which is just to be tenderhearted and soft-hearted and to offer a respite or kindness. Someone can do something, like for instance, let's say someone travels and they run out of money and I see them in the train station and they're just moving around, panhandling. There's a ton of people panhandling with a ton of fake stories. And then someone says to me, please, I came here from New Jersey to do this and that and it hasn't worked out and I don't have enough money to go back for a ticket. And it can be a scam, it cannot. That doesn't matter to me. Usually God will move my heart and I'll buy that person a ticket back to Jersey. I'll give them the money to go back to Jersey. That's just having a merciful heart. Showing mercy to a person doesn't mean that person has committed a crime. Clemency is where you are indeed guilty of a crime. And the higher authority has caught you, found you, smoked you out, brought you to face the law, brought you to face justice, and is now about to pass sentence. And then, instead of passing sentence, that is, instead of meting out justice, I explain what meting is. To meet something is to give a harsh punishment, to treat people poorly and in a bad way. Instead of meting out justice or a judgment, you show clemency, which is to show mercy. Which is to say, I'm going to use you to clean up all the schools and everything. That will be your punishment. And then the judge person whose head was down, who was waiting to hear the axe will fall, looks up in shock and meets the eyes of the judge, and the judge says, so ordered. That is clemency. God says that clemency cannot be found in the United States. And remember, God is above fair. God is always just, so he cannot lie, no matter how much the nation doesn't want to hear it. I know a lot of people will be skipping this part, but thank God there are people who watch to the end. So God says America is a nation that can't offer clemency to others, can't offer a kinder judgment than what is admittedly deserved. And why is that? God says this nation has never needed mercy itself. Who's ever beat the United States? Who's ever made the people in America cry? The only people that make Americans cry are the American government, who pretend to be Saddam, who pretend to be Osama, who pretend to be whoever they're pretending to be, and then they cause harm, and then they say, look, it was the towel heads, it was the Arabs, hate them. America's not been beaten in anything. Occasionally she will lose a war here and lose there, but you know what? It's a scratch on the face of a very robust and self-healing Wolverine. America doesn't know what it is to eat humble pie, to fall. And so God says, when you've never been beaten, how would you ever know what the need for mercy feels like? No, you will operate from a place of justifying yourself. That is what is happening in this immigration debate right now. Yet God spoke about these things, like I said, in 2019. There's actually another prophecy directly involving, come here, computer, directly involving President Donald Trump, and this prophecy was given in his time. That prophecy was given in July 31st, 2019, and it's called Isaiah 10:1, the unrighteous judgment. And it was talking about him and the laws that he... Immoral laws. So then it is very possible for a nation to make laws that, according to its viewpoints, are extremely moral, and then for heaven to say these laws are actually extremely immoral because they offend against heavenly principles like clemency, mercy, shelter, covering, and things like that. And also, let's not overlook it, ancestral historical right. The people who are making the laws here have no ancestral and historical right to the nation. It cooks them to their core to hear it, but then again, I come to bring God's perspective on things because mercifully, I don't work for anybody but him. And so this one prophecy from July the 31st, 2019 mentions the taskmasters, and then the actual prophecy that came some months after that is called the taskmasters from September the 1st, 2019, and God was talking about people who unjustly use bonded labor, such as what the Mexicans and everybody else provides here, the Filipinos in the hospitals, and so many other nationalities, lots of Nigerians here, lots of other Africans here, working in jobs that most Americans would not like to fill, okay? And he was just talking about how America comes down very hard on the people who perform the bonded labor in this country, and that's exactly how the Egyptians made the Israelites serve with rigor. God said that it's very hard to be of a different nationality, Caribbean, wherever, working these 6-hour night shift jobs, working the security guard jobs and things like that, and then you are treated with no respect, you are still disrespected, you are still gazed down upon as less because of the part of society where you occupy and things like that. And so he was just talking about xenophobia in America, which is the fear and the hatred of foreigners. He was talking about national paranoia, which he also called hysteria, which is the minute it comes to foreign policy questions, who's an enemy, who's a foreign enemy, who's a domestic enemy that is of Pakistani descent or anything like that, Americans become whipped up into a very real, palpable, and visible hysteria. And the way that hysteria manifests itself is you will see 800 billion million people making videos about the same things and talking about it. It's like a billion tongues wagging in the ether over a matter. That is national paranoia, also known as hysteria. And then he was also mentioning the public policy in areas like economics, labor, slavery, and immigration, and what he called the taskmasters. And so the Lord was giving me a Bible study that basically focused on Exodus chapter 1, and when it's time for me to make that policy and how the ways that America works and the way that she differentiates labor in this country, even between minorities like African Americans, other like Asian Americans, things like that, as opposed to the majority demographic, the Lord says it very closely mimics biblical slavery. And so that was very interesting, and it is strange to me that since 2019 until now, I've not even looked at this prophecy until the Lord has led me by this way. And so we're talking of a nation that has never needed mercy because it's never been beat, and so therefore it doesn't actually know how to dispense mercy, having never needed it itself. But God says now a time will come when international borders will shut against Americans, and that's definitely during the Civil War time for sure, and during the Russian invasion time, which I don't even think that people will be able to get out of the country because how sudden that will be. But the Civil War time is a time definitely I've spoken of here for a good long stretch where Americans will be piling on planes and running away and everything trying to get out of the country, and God says that He will make sure that the immigration that is not